The neon lights of the bustling spaceport flickered as the rain fell in sheets, pooling in the cracks of the cracked permacrete. The air was thick with the scent of recycled oxygen and the faint tang of alien spices from the nearby market. In the shadows of a narrow alley, a thin, trembling figure darted between the crates, her tattered cloak clinging to her frail frame. Her eyes darted nervously as she clutched a small, wrapped package to her chest. She was a Xelarian, her pale blue skin marked with faint bioluminescent patterns that glowed faintly in the dark. Her species was known for their grace and resilience, but now she looked broken, desperate. Her name was Kaela, and she was a mother. Behind her, a small child clung to her leg, his wide eyes filled with fear. "Mama, I'm scared," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the rain. "Sure, Lyron," Kaela murmured, stroking his head. "We'll be safe soon. Just a little longer." But safety was a luxury she could no longer afford. The Galactic Federation had strict laws, and stealing, no matter the reason, was punishable by imprisonment or worse. Kaela had no choice. Her son was starving, and the rations provided by the Federation were barely enough to keep him alive. She had tried to beg, to barter, but no one cared about a displaced Xelarian refugee. The package in her arms was a stolen nutrient bar, pilfered from a vendor's stall. It wasn't much, but it would keep Lyron alive for another day. She had thought she was careful, but as she turned the corner, a towering figure stepped into her path. It was a Zorgal, a hulking reptilian enforcer hired by the market's owners. His scales glistened in the rain, and his yellow eyes narrowed as he loomed over her. "Thief," he hissed, his voice like gravel. "You thought you could steal from us and get away with it?" Kaela stumbled back, shielding Lyron with her body. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling. "My child, he's starving." "I had no choice." The Zorgal sneered, his sharp teeth glinting. "Your problems are not my concern. The law is clear. You will face justice." He reached for her, his clawed hand closing around her arm. Kaela cried out, but before the enforcer could drag her away, a voice cut through the rain. "Let her go." The Zorgal turned, his eyes narrowing as a human stepped into the alley. The man was tall, his broad shoulders covered by a weathered duster. His face was rugged, with a scar running down his left cheek, and his eyes were a piercing green that seemed to glow in the dim light. He carried himself with an air of quiet confidence, and though he was unarmed, there was something about him that made the Zorgal hesitate. "This doesn't concern you, human," the enforcer growled. "Move along or you'll regret it." The man didn't flinch. "I said let her go." Kaela stared at the human, her heart pounding. She had heard stories about humans, their ferocity, their unpredictability. They were a young species, barely a blip on the galactic stage, but they had a reputation for defying the odds. She didn't know if this man was here to help or if he would make things worse, but she clung to the faint hope that he might be her salvation. The Zorgal snarled and released Kaela, turning to face the human. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice low and dangerous. The human shrugged. "Maybe. But I don't like bullies." The enforcer lunged, his massive frame barreling toward the human. But the man was faster. He sidestepped the attack, his movements fluid and precise. With a swift, calculated strike, he drove his elbow into the Zorgal's side, causing the reptilian to stagger. The enforcer roared in anger, swinging his claws, but the human dodged again, his movements almost too fast to follow. Kaela watched in awe as the human outmaneuvered the Zorgal, his every move deliberate and efficient. It was as if he had been trained for this, trained to fight, to survive. Finally, with a powerful kick to the enforcer's chest, The human sent the Zorgal crashing to the ground. The reptilian groaned, struggling to rise, but the human stood over him, his expression cold. "Stay down," he said, his voice calm but firm. The Zorgal hesitated, then slumped back, defeated. The human turned to Kaela, his expression softening. "Are you okay?" Kaela nodded, still trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know how to repay you." The man shook his head. "You don't have to. Come on, let's get you and your kid out of here before more show up." He led them through the maze of alleys, his movements confident and assured. Kaela followed, clutching Lyron tightly. She didn't know where they were going, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. They eventually reached a small, run-down building on the outskirts of the spaceport. The human ushered them inside, where the air was warm and dry. The room was sparsely furnished, but it was clean and safe. "Sit down," the man said, gesturing to a worn couch. "I'll get you something to eat." Kaela hesitated, then sat, holding Lyron close. The human returned a moment later with a plate of food. Real food, not the bland rations she had grown accustomed to. Lyron's eyes lit up, and he eagerly reached for the plate. "Thank you," Kaela said again, her voice choked with emotion. "You've done so much for us." "Why?" The man sat across from her, his expression thoughtful. "Because I've been where you are," he said quietly. "I know what it's like to be desperate, to feel like the whole galaxy is against you. Humans, we don't forget where we came from. We look out for each other, and for anyone who needs help." Kaela nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I don't even know your name." The man smiled faintly. "It's Jack. Jack Harper." "Thank you, Jack," Kaela said, her voice trembling. "You've given us a chance. I don't know how to repay you." Jack shook his head. "You don't have to. Just take care of your boy. That's all the thanks I need." As Kaela and Lyron ate, Jack sat quietly, watching over them. He didn't say much, but his presence was comforting. For the first time in months, Kaela felt a sense of peace. But the peace was short-lived. The sound of heavy footsteps outside the door made Jack tense. He stood, his eyes narrowing as he moved to the window. "Stay here," he said quietly. "Don't make a sound." Kaela nodded, clutching Lyron tightly. Jack slipped out the door, his movements silent and deliberate. Outside, a group of Zorgal enforcers had gathered, their eyes scanning the area. "You've caused enough trouble, human," one of them growled. "Hand over the thief, or face the consequences." Jack stepped into the open, his expression calm. "She's not a thief," he said. "She's a mother trying to keep her child alive. If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The Zorgal snarled, their claws flexing. "So be it." What followed was a blur of motion and violence. Jack fought with a ferocity that stunned even the enforcers. He moved like a predator, his every strike precise and deadly. One by one the Zorgal fell, until only Jack remained standing, his chest heaving and his knuckles bloodied.